All right. Well, good morning. And it is still morning. Welcome to our morning devotions. And we're looking into Genesis chapter 1. We're working through the 6 days of creation. This is episode 271. And we're picking up at verse 14. It says, And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So now we're talking about the celestial bodies. Okay, we're going to talk about the sun and the moon and the stars and the constellations and all those things that we don't think too much about anymore. You might get a telescope for your birthday or for Christmas or something, but there's been times in the past, especially among the mariners, the shippers, and using the different tools that they had to determine their latitude and longitude based on the stars. I mean, and determining the time of the year it is, and when it's time to plant and when it's time to harvest. And within a religious context, the feast of the Israel were determined according to some of these things. But that's what we're going to be reading about here. When it talks about the signs, the sign just means a means of knowing. And uh, I mean, it would be, I mean, I don't think everybody can still work a sextant, right? Because now we have computers, but can you imagine being in the ocean with a sextant determining which direction you're going and where you are on the planet based on the stars? I mean, that would have been an amazing thing. But these are common things that would have happened in the past that for the most part we've lost. When we talk about how we've evolved and everything, we've evolved because we have GPS, right? And we have uh, global positioning. We have the satellites. But in the past, this was all done by hand, and it was based on the stars, and that's what this is in reference to. This I just looked this up. When it comes to the signs that were determined by the location of the constellations, they included agriculture, planting, reaping, navigation, the things that were used in daily life. The most simple thing would have been a sundial. You could tell what time it was in the day. All of these things were determined when it comes to seasons. Uh, Seasons here would have just been your regular seasons that we have. Some men said it doesn't have to deal specifically with seasons, but seasons, but as far as an epic. But I think that probably the closer rendering here would be that you are going to determine seasons by where the sun is in the sky, right? And the longest day and the shortest day of the year, summer and winter solstice, all of uh, these things were just determined by especially back in the agricultural societies of the days gone by the location of the stars in the sky. As I throw that in there, it's very interesting because the two times that we've been to Australia, when you look up in the sky, it's a whole other set of stars. There's no North Star in Australia because you're on the other pole. It's just you're on the southern hemisphere. It's just a marvelous thing the way that God has made the earth. So the stars work everywhere, although it might be a different set of stars depending where you find yourself on the planet. Anyway, so he goes on. He says, "And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. So certain he's going to specifically speak here of the sun and the moon giving light on the earth. Now we know the sun generates its own light. The moon is reflective light, but if you've been out at night under a full moon, you could don't do this, but you could almost drive around with no your headlights on. I mean, you can still see down the yard across the road just from the moonlight because sometimes it gets really, really bright. Military guys know that you don't want to sneak up on somebody under a full moon because it's like you're under the. It's just very illuminating. And that's what we have here. He said, and in verse 16 it said, God made two great lights, and that's what we're going to talk about. The greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night, and he made the stars also. So last night, I mean, it's been really cold here, but it's cold because we have a high pressure system and there's no clouds. I mean, the sky is clear. And here on the mountains, when you look up in the sky and you see the stars, and I've mentioned this before. I mean, it's almost like you can touch them. I mean, they are so bright. It's dark out here. You're on top of the mountain, and the stars just seem to be they're extraordinary here, and you can see them all, so to speak. I mean, you can't see them all, but so many stars to see. And so I was talking to my son, and I think it's out in Death Valley. It's in Death Valley, I think, where there's times when you can see the Milky Way in the sky, which I think is amazing. So that's what this is about. He's putting all the stars there. And when we read stars here, now we're talking about the universe. Now we're talking about everything the Hubble telescopes and subsequent telescopes can show us about what is out in the universe. And the pictures that come back are absolutely amazing. What God has put in the sky. So we're talking about celestial bodies. He's got the sun and the moon, particularly because he's talking about this planet. And then he says also the stars, which is the universe. And it says, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And he said the evening and the morning were the fourth day. So at night, he's speaking of these things in terms of service, that the moon rules at night and the sun rules in the day. And that's what we have here. And this all happens on the fourth day. One commentator said he thought it was interesting that the planets are actually here before there are celestial bodies. Isn't that amazing? Because we would say that plants function by photosynthesis and they need the sun. Now, it's only one day, but for that one day in that perfect environment, the sun wasn't necessary for photosynthesis. The sun wasn't necessary for warmth. This is just the nature of creation. All these extra things that you just need to think about what God has done, because the earth is warm because God made it so. The plants are growing because God made it so. They're not contingent upon anything, which is what I said earlier. The light is not contingent. The atmosphere in space is not contingent. It's all depending on God. The sun, the moon, the stars are all dependent upon God. Now, he's putting them in place, and when it talks about them that they're going to be there for a sign, now we see that there's the order and the organization of God's plan. And even the commentators, most the good guys and the critical guys, all say that what we're seeing here when it says there for a sign, we're talking about the movement of the earth around the sun. All right. And some guy said that the whole idea that we thought that we had a earth-centered universe, if they understand this properly, no one would have ever thought that, okay, that it was always planets that would be revolving around the sun. I thought that was an interesting observation on his part. But that's what we have on the fourth day. So after plants, you get the sun, moon, and the stars, all right, which is to say the universe. And then it comes on to we're coming to the fifth day now, and it says this, and again, these are 24-hour days. It's interesting, the comments, nobody in the comments, because most of these commentaries are pretty old, nobody says that there's anything more than this is 24-hour days. These are 24-hour days when he gets this all done. All right. And interesting here, when he talks about the times and figuring out all of that as a sign, that only works. That only works if there's 24-hour days. If it's not, this all has to be allegorized or spiritualized. Because if you're going to use the sky, the stars, as a sign for something that gives us knowledge of things, and so you know where the stars would be at a certain time of the year, so to speak, all of that is based on the consistent and perpetually perfect movement of the planets around the sun and wherever else things revolve and rotate. But here we're just talking about the earth. This is where what this is in reference to. Very, very interesting, the importance of the day, because you have to pitch all of that out if it's not a 24-hour day where everything is moving consistently in the universe. That is revolution and revolving, revolves it revolves once around the earth, once around 24 hours, and then the revolution around rotates, excuse me, and then it revolves around the sun every 365 days and change. All of that has to be built into the fact that it is actually a day. That verse throws everything off unless you're just going to start allegorizing the whole thing, because men throughout the ages have functioned according to this. Okay, this is not astrology. This isn't worshiping it. It's just the way that God put things in motion and how man has utilized that to find out what's going on and where he's going. That's all that's happening here. So we're down to the fifth day. It says in verse 20, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, the fowl that fly above the earth, and the open in the open heavens. So now you're going to get fish and you're going to get birds. That's what you get on the fifth day. All right, fish and birds on the fifth day. And God created great whales. It's interesting here, great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind. And it says here again, blue whales only have blue whales. All right, they don't have something else after their kind. And I got to throw this into here because I'm trying to anticipate questions. But of course, this would include all the dinosaurs. All the dinosaurs are here. I mean, all these fossils, part of this creation is dinosaurs, what we call dinosaurs, which would have just been part of the created order. And at this time, they're not eating meat. They don't start eating each other and eating meat until after the flood. And there's a fear placed upon the animals. So here you have these huge dinosaurs, which we found their bones and the skeletons. It's amazing. They're just walking around with everything else, and they're just as common. See, we don't think of it that way, but they're just as common as bunny rabbits and deer and horses and everything else. Okay, and they're all in this perfect created world that God made. All right. And I'm only surmising what could have been done, but what an amazing thing that would have been to have such huge creatures. But they would have been docile, like everything else was docile during that time. I mean, in reference to man. Let's see. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, and saying, be fruitful and multiply, fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. So there we have everything that's in the water, okay? And we have the birds, okay? That's what we have here. So, and then we have down here in verse 23, and the evening and the morning were the fifth day. In the fifth 24-hour day. Man, we're coming right along here now, right? And then it says this. Verse 24 is where you're going to get the sixth day. Now, on the sixth day, it's a busy day. And you ask yourself, how could all of this happen on the sixth day? And it's because we do not understand, and I argue, the genius of Adam. He is just been created in the image of God, and there is no sin, there's no fall. If there was anyone that ever could have just walked off this planet into heaven, it would have been Adam and Eve before the fall. They were perfect, and they were like a God in an unlimited finite way. Okay, a relative finite way. They were like God. I mean, and we'll look at that. I think I'm gonna wait on the nature of man because it's too much. I mean, what it means to be in the image of man. But when I say it's a busy day, this is what's going to happen on the sixth day. You're going to get all the land animals and creeping things created on the sixth day. But how long does that take? It takes the twinkle, so to speak, of God's eye. So that doesn't take any time. He's then going to take and form out of the dust of the ground Adam. He's going to breathe into him and make him a living soul. So now you have man. So now that happened in another 1 second for God to do that, or let's say 10 seconds. Okay, so that's done. And then we see that God's going to bring the animals to Adam, and Adam's going to name them. Now, it doesn't say he names all of them, but he names the animals that God brings to him. And I think that naming process may have gone on. It doesn't say. But whether or not it happened all the time, it happened in enough time for him to name the animals that God had brought to him, and then for God to tell us that there was no suitable completion for Adam. And so, in that 24-hour days, while he's naming the animals, he puts Adam to sleep, takes the rib out of him, and creates a woman. This all happens on the sixth day. All right. All I'm trying to say is if you get your time frame down and you understand how rapidly this can happen, it should not confound anybody that all of this can be squeezed in. I shouldn't even say squeezed in into the sixth day, because after all this is done, the seventh day comes and God rests. All right. So this is the beginning of the sixth day. And we see it here in verse 24. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creatures up after his kind, cattle and creeping things and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so, which would have included, as I said, we have the underwater dinosaurs. Now we have the walking dinosaurs. I mean, the ones that are on the earth. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, cattle after their kind. And I'm so glad that Moses keeps putting this in here. Now it's the Holy Spirit is using Moses as the penman, but it says after his kind, after his kind, after his kind. So in my generation, in the generations that preceded me, all the generations since the 1880s, nobody's under the impression that a cow ever brought forth an alligator or an alligator ever brought forth a cow. That's never happened. It's never going to happen. It's not scientific. It's voodoo. Okay, it's you have to lay aside your reason to buy any of that. See, this is the world we're living in. Okay, you have to lay aside your reason and then just suck it up, so to speak. That is the nature of a cult. If you lay aside your reason and just take somebody's word for it, okay? Christianity is not that way because we have a common element which is called Scripture, all right? And there are common elements that you have to believe based on what God tells us, okay? Not what somebody says. And what we're talking about here is these evolutionary scientists. I mean, and the stuff that you have to buy just to try to make this world an atheistic world to get God out of the picture, you have to throw your reason to the wind. Just throw it out. Especially when you find, I just read something that they found these skeletons of a whole bunch of whales in the desert. You find these fossilized or where the plant was. It leaves an indentation in the sandstone of something that should have been in the ocean in the desert. How did that get there? Yeah. See, the evolutionists, if they don't want to talk about reason, this is the issue that we have. When I say sin makes you stupid, then you just have to buy it. All right. Then you just have to believe it. And because of the depravity of man and his willingness to do anything he can to make himself God, he'll buy that rather than say, I have to submit to God. Anyway, that's another story, but that's what we're up against. He says, and then you have these creeping, God made the beast of the earth after his kind, cattle after their kind, everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. That is, ants have more ants. All right. And God saw that it was good. And this is good. I mean, if it had not been for the fall, this is morally good, that it is perfect in its existence, and teleologically good. That is, it would have lasted forever because there would have been no decay. There would have been no deterioration. There would have been no first and second laws of thermodynamics. Okay, there would have never been any entropy. All there would have been was life, and life. It would have been amazing. So when he says it's good, this is amazingly good. And then he starts here. Now, this is still on the sixth day, but I'm going to stop. But here's where we are. So we got everything's made now. The whole earth is together. The universe is together. And now we're down to the premiere, the most wonderful part of creation, which is going to separate man from everything else. And that is that man's going to be made in the image of God. Nothing else we've read about is made in the image of God. It's only man. And that's why man is treated differently in the text. It says this in verse 26, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. And I'm going to stop right there, and we'll pick that up, Lord willing, tomorrow. Okay? So again, stay warm. A buddy of mine posted on Facebook that it was 3 below here, which for here it's cold. So it's still pretty cold out, but a little bit of cold makes a person hardy. All right, it does. Okay, and if you can drive in the snow, it'll make you a better driver too. Okay, Lord bless you. We'll see you later. Lord willing, we'll see everybody tomorrow.